Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are at in this fine world. And I'm Todd DeVoe, host of Business Continuity Today. Today, we're going to get into a little history lesson. But before we get into the topic, I want to extend a personal invitation to you to join us on Thursday for a special Titan HST webinar. It's using incident management teams to plan for and respond to crisis. And we have Troy Ludwig coming here with us from Scottsdale, Arizona. And I think you guys will really like it. The link will be down in the show notes. So grab it, or you can see us at LinkedIn as well, on our LinkedIn page, and sign up today. Space is limited, so please get your seat when you have it. So now let's delve into some history here. And this is going to sound like a spy thriller. However, it's all true. And why are we talking about this here with Business Continuity Today? Because it really is the history of where continuity of operations kind of comes from. And we're going to go back to the government. So in the 1940s, 1930s, when the world was at war, the concept of having a place for the president to go to, and not just the president, the cabinet, Congress members, key Congress members, not everybody in Congress, and senators to escape to in case the United States was attacked. So that's the basis of it. Now, there might have been some stuff before that, but this is really where we get today with continuity of government, which falls into continuity of operations, which falls into business continuity. So you may have seen some cool movies like Air Force One or Fallen. There's one where the White House gets attacked and Morgan Freeman's the president, like those type of movies where the president is under direct threat and they take him to those locations undisclosed. Now, in real life, we saw this play out on 9/11, where the president went up into the Air Force One and was up there for, I don't know how long, for a long time. And Dick Cheney was put into a location that was hidden. And you've seen, Congress and whatnot, the cabinet members all put into locations where they're undisclosed locations. And so there's great effort that goes into protecting the government to make sure that there is continuity of government. The government will be operating for as long as the nation's around. And what I find interesting about this is during the 1950s, with the nuclear war threat from the Soviet Union, realistically, the idea was, if as long as one elected official was still alive, like, we won the war. That was kind of the concept behind it. And so there's great effort that goes into protecting these elected officials. And so the idea that only government leaders would survive this catastrophe was where it kind of went through. Now, there are some really cool documentaries and videos you can find with, like, Greenboro, West Virginia, which was it's a hotel, and has bunkers. A whole Congress can be brought there, and all sorts of kind of neat stuff that are there. So these are Cold War locations that I guess are no longer classified, obviously, because you can go get tours there and stuff like that. So it's really kind of interesting. And so they have these Doomsday facilities, and today there's still some Doomsday facilities around. I would gather those locations, undisclosed locations, where government would go. So that being said, we do a lot of the same stuff, right? Like when it comes to our business, not necessarily Doomsday facilities, but the idea of who do we move? Like, what do we do to keep the operations going for the business? And so what are your plans on doing? Like, do you have asset protection? In other words, are you protecting the C-suite when you have attacks, right? So 9/11, for instance, or Mumbai attacks in India, things like that that are real, right? Real world issues. Have you thought about that as part of your business continuity planning? In the case where bunkers are central to doomsday plans, I don't say we have to go out and build bunkers for our C-suite or for our executives, but are there locations, safe locations that that you can get them to, so they can continue to make decisions, specifically if you have large businesses that are impactful to the United States. Say, for instance, like a Walmart or a Home Depot or Lowe's, those type of businesses that we're going to be leaning on during crisis to help rebuild, right? So spend a little bit of time on thinking about that. And I find the secret plans highly interesting, right? Of where are things going, and what were their thought processes, right? And I've read the book Raven Rock, but and you should too. And it's always on my top 10 list of books to read, to have on a emergency management bookshelf. But it's a really interesting read when it comes to what these secret plans were. So the secret plans um, call for all sorts of interesting things, such as where can we hold people, as far as even mass incarceration, so aka camps, are part of these plans. So this is where some of the conspiracy theorists get their information from. But I find it interesting that these are part of real plans that have been written in case of large scale civil unrest and war here on the nation. It's not necessarily going around and rounding people up, but it's the idea of if we had invasion, what do we do with the soldiers that are from invading countries, and where do we put them? I really find that the history, where you take a look at government operations and you parallel that over to the civilian side into business operations, is there. And the idea of continuity of operations for government, the COG plans, COG, and continuity of operations for businesses, again, there's this really neat parallel. And so if you are interested to see where we came from as emergency management, where we came from as business continuity, and really how that plays into things, take a look at the history that is out there. So again, a book like Raven Rock, for instance, is a great way to start. There's other things that are out there, documentaries that you can find on your streaming services that go into the doomsday. When I say doomsday, government wise, bunkers that they made, such as Raven Rock. That's what that is. It's actually one of those locations. It's called Raven Rock, Greensboro. There's places in Camp David, for instance, is one of those places that is hardened for people to get to. So these locations that are across the country, and the plans that the United States has for keeping its elected officials alive during emergencies. And we have activated this. This is not just theory. 9/11, we actually put the plan into place and put people in these locations. January 6th, I guess, from what I'm reading and seeing, that they activated some of that as well with Congress, and put them into some locations that are undisclosed to keep the congressional leadership safe during that protest. So what are we doing? How can we take lessons learned from big government into what they're doing to keep people safe, and can we implement those into our small business, right, or into our medium-sized business, or into our large business? This is some of the stuff that you can do with your business continuity plan. And you know what? It makes an interesting and fun tabletop exercise to get your C-suite to buy in, because now they're looking at this going, oh, wait, how do we protect our decision makers during time of crisis, right? Because we've seen it. 2020, pretty rough year. Lots of protests around the country where buildings are being burned down, and things are being destroyed. Election time is coming up here in the next couple of days, and everybody's getting ready for that type of civil unrest again, possibilities of that. So kind of keep that stuff in the back of your mind. What are you doing to keep your C-suite, your decision makers safe during crisis? Take a look at Raven Rock if you have time, and take a little bit of history lesson from where continuity of government moves into continuity of operations. That's kind of what we're doing with business continuity today. So I hope you had fun with this one, listening to some of the history. I like this kind of thing. It really kind of drives me a little bit. But that being said, it is just one of those things that we need to kind of just pay attention to. So thank you for spending time with me today. And if you want to learn more about protecting your team and having a communications team during crisis, you know what? Visit Titan HST at titanhst.com, and have a safe and wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe. Stay hydrated.